Hello class, welcome to Connected. So children, today's class we will be studying about the Union Legislature. Let's go over an introduction before getting on to the topic. Parliament is the Union Legislature in India. The term legislative comes from the Latin word lex that refers largely to the widespread application of a different form of legal regulation. This norm is called legislation, which is known as legislature as the institution which implements it on behalf of the people. In essence, the parliamentary and the presidential are two paradigms for a legislative system. The executive is chosen by the legislature from among its members in the parliamentary model. The executive is therefore accountable to the parliament. The presidential system is founded on the notion of the division of powers and does not allow someone to serve both in executive and legislative terms simultaneously. The parliamentary system was adopted by India. Let's move children into this chapter in depth and start with the subject Union Legislature. The Parliament of India must be composed of the President and the two houses, the lower house or Lok Sabha and the upper house or Rajya Sabha under Article 79 of the Constitution of India. Moving on to our next topic, the President. Children, pay attention to this part as we will be going through the powers that the President can utilize. The President of the United States is not a member of the Parliament. India's President is a major component of the Indian Parliament. However, in either of the two houses, he could not sit and participate in the discussions. President's legislative powers can be summarized as follows. He can summon or prorogue the Parliament and dissolve the Lok Sabha. He can also summon a joint sitting of both the houses of Parliament. He can address the Parliament at the commencement of the first session after each general election and first session of each year. He can send messages to the houses of Parliament whether with respect to bill pending in the Parliament or otherwise. He can appoint any member of the Lok Sabha to preside over its proceeding when the offices of both the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker fall vacant. Similarly, he can also appoint any member of the Rajya Sabha to preside over its proceeding when the offices of both the Chairman and the Deputy Chairman fall vacant. He nominates 12 members of the Rajya Sabha from amongst the person having special knowledge or practical experience in respect of literature, science, art and social service. He can nominate 2 members to the Lok Sabha from the Anglo-Indian community. He decides on questions as to disqualifications of members of the Parliament in consultation with the Election Commission. His prior recommendation of permission is needed to introduce certain types of bills in the Parliament. For example, a bill involving expenditure from the Consolidated Fund of India and a bill for the alteration of boundaries of states or creation of a new state. When a bill is sent to the President after it has been passed by the Parliament, he can give his assent to the bill or withhold his assent to the bill or return the bill if it is not a money bill for reconsideration of the Parliament. However, with or without revisions, if the bill is adopted by the House again, the measure must be approved by the President. In relation to the Constitutional Amendment Bill, it should be highlighted. The President has no veto authority. The 24th Amendment 1971 makes it mandatory that a constitutional amendment bill be approved by the President. When a bill passed by a state legislature is reserved by the Governor for consideration of the President can give his assent to the bill or withhold his assent to the bill or direct the Governor to return the bill if it is not a money bill for reconsideration of the state legislature. It should be noted here that it is not obligatory for the President to give his assent even if the bill is again passed by the state legislature and sent again to him for his consideration. Thus, the President enjoys absolute veto over state bills. He can promulgate ordinances when the Parliament is not in session. These ordinances must be approved by the Parliament within 6 weeks from its reassembly. He can also withdraw an ordinance at any time. He lays the report of the Comptroller and Auditor General, Union Public Service Commission, Finance Commission, and others before the Parliament. He can make regulations for the peace, progress, and good government of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep, Dadra and Nagar Haveli, and Daman and Diu. In the case of Pondicherry also, the President can legislate by making regulations, but only when the Assembly is suspended or dissolved. Pay attention to the upcoming topics as we will be going through the two houses of the Parliament, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. We will resume a topic with Rajya Sabha, a permanent entity. Rajya Sabha or the upper house of the Parliament cannot be disbanded. Rajya Sabha membership is not more than 250. That's all. Based on its distinction in literature, science, the arts and social services, the President nominates 12 members, the remainder being chosen. Currently, it comprises 245 members. Rajya Sabha is the Indian Union body of states. Elected members of the legislature of the state shall, using a single transferable voting method, elect the members of the Rajya Sabha on the basis of proportional representation. So, Rajya Sabha takes the indirect election procedure as opposed to Lok Sabha. Each state shall be assigned a number of members for the purpose of this election, principally based on its population. The Rajya Sabha thereby represents the federal nature through a representation of the federal states or subdivisions. Bigger countries get more represented while the smaller countries are less represented. Maharashtra, for example, sends 19 electors, whereas Goa sending 1 elect to Rajya Sabha. Qualifications for membership of Rajya Sabha. The criteria for membership of Parliament are provided for under Article 84 of the Constitution. The following requirements should apply to a person qualifying for Rajya Sabha's membership. He must be a citizen of India. He must be not less than 30 years of age. He must possess such other qualifications as may be prescribed by Parliament. Disqualifications. Article 102 of the Constitution stipulates that the individual as member of either Parliament shall be disqualified if he holds any office of profit under the Government of India or the Government of any state, if he is of unsound mind and stands so declared by a competent court, if he is an undischarged insolvent, if he is not a citizen of India or has voluntarily acquired the citizenship of foreign state, if he is so disqualified by or under any law made by Parliament. Tenure. Every member of Rajya Sabha has tenure of 6 years. After every 2 years, 1/3 of its members retire. You have the right to compete for membership again, but the remaining period is served by a member elected against a medium-term vacancy. This election mechanism guarantees continuity in Rajya Sabha's functioning. Officials of Rajya Sabha. The Vice President of India serves as the Rajya Sabha's ex-officio chairman. He or she is in charge of the Rajya Sabha's meetings. In his absence, the meeting of the House is presided over by the Deputy Chairman, who is elected by the members from among themselves. The Deputy Chairman can be dismissed by a majority of the Rajya Sabha members presented at the time. However, the Chairman, Vice President may only be dismissed from office if a resolution is voted by a majority of all Rajya Sabha members at the time and the Lok Sabha agrees. The Vice President is typically not allowed to vote because he is an ex-officio chairman and not a Rajya Sabha member. He or she can only vote if there is a tie. A tie occurs when the number of votes cast in favor and against a measure or resolution are equal. In such a case, the presiding officer may cast a tie-breaking vote in favor of the opposing party. Children, previously we read about Rajya Sabha. Now we will move our next topic, that is Lok Sabha. In contrast to the Rajya Sabha, the Lok Sabha is a temporary body. It is directly chosen by the people using the universal adult franchise. All people aged 18 and above are eligible to vote in Lok Sabha elections according to the legislation enacted by the Parliament. As a result, it is known as the Popular House or Lower House. The Lok Sabha has a maximum membership of 550 members, of which 530 are directly elected from the states and 20 from the Union Territories. Article 81. Furthermore, if the President believes the Anglo-Indian community is underrepresented in the House, he or she may designate 2 members from that community. Article 331. The Lok Sabha has a total of 543 elected members, with states electing 530 members and union territories electing 13. If the President nominates 2 Anglo-Indians, the total number of members will be 545. Reservation of seats. In the Lok Sabha, a certain number of seats have been set aside for members of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Reservation of seats for scheduled caste or scheduled tribes indicates that those who identify as SC or ST will be represented in these reserved seats. It means that only members of the SC or ST community are eligible to run for office in the reserved constituencies. In the Lok Sabha, 84 seats are allocated for SCs and 47 seats are allocated for STs. Territorial representation. The Lok Sabha is elected on the basis of population. As a result, UP, India's most populous state, sends up to 80 members to the Lok Sabha, while smaller states like Mizoram, Nagaland and Sikkim each send only one MP. The allocation of seats among the states is based on the territorial representation concept, which implies that each state is assigned 18 representatives depending on its population in relation to the total population of the states. For the purposes of Lok Sabha elections, states are split into single-member constituencies that are roughly the same size in terms of population. Qualifications and disqualifications. All the qualifications and disqualifications as mentioned above for Rajya Sabha apply to Lok Sabha also. However, there are few differences as follows. For becoming a member of Lok Sabha, a person should be 25 years of age. A person contesting from the reserved seat should belong to the scheduled caste or scheduled tribe as the case may be. No person can be member of both houses of parliament or member both of parliament and of a state legislature. The candidate may contest from several seats, but if elected from more than one, he has to vacate all except one according to his choice. If a person is elected both to the state legislature and the parliament, and if he does not resign from the state legislature within the specified time period, he will forfeit his seat in parliament. Tenure. The Lok Sabha's usual duration is 5 years. However, on the suggestion of the Council of Ministers, the President may dissolve it before the 5-year period is through. Its tenure can be extended for 1 year at a time in the event of a national emergency. However, it will not last longer than 6 months once the emergency is passed. The Lok Sabha has been dissolved multiple times before the conclusion of its term. The 12th Lok Sabha, which was elected in 1998, was dissolved in 1999. Due to the continuing national emergency, the Lok Sabha's tenure was prolonged in 1976. Officials of the Lok Sabha. Speaker and Deputy Speaker. The Speaker is the presiding officer of the Lok Sabha. He is elected by the members of the House of Representatives. Even when the Lok Sabha is dissolved, he remains Speaker till the next House elects a new Speaker in his stead. In his absence, the proceedings are presided over by a Deputy Speaker who is similarly chosen by the House. Once elected, the Speaker detaches himself from his political party and begins to work impartially. Both the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker can be removed from office by a Lok Sabha resolution voted by a majority of the members of the House at the time. Power and functions of the Speaker. Some of the powers and functions of the Speaker are given below. The basic function of the Speaker is to preside over the House and conduct the meetings of the House in orderly manner. No member can speak in the House without his permission. He may ask a member to finish his speech, and in case the member does not obey, he may order that the speech should not be recorded. He decides points of order, interprets and applies rules of the House. All the bills, reports, motions and resolutions are introduced with Speaker permissions. He puts the motion of bill to vote. He does not participate in the voting, but when there is a tie, that is equal number of votes on both sides, he can use his casting vote. But he is expected to cast his vote in a manner so that his impartiality and independence is retained. The Speaker certifies whether a bill is money bill or not. His decisions in all parliamentary matters are final. He is the custodian of rights and privileges of the members. He can disqualify a member of his or her membership in case of defection. He also accepts the resignation of members and decides about the genuineness of the resignation. In case of joint sitting of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, the Speaker presides over the meeting. Moving on to our next topic. Powers of Union Legislature. The Indian Constitution's 7th schedule lays forth a detailed separation of legislative responsibilities between the union and state governments. The executive and legislative powers of the federal and state governments coexist. The union list, the state list, and the concurrent list are three lists that list the powers of the federal and state governments. The functions of the union government are listed in List 1, the union list, which covers 97 topics. List 2, the state list, comprises 61 subjects on which state legislatures will make legislation. The powers that must be exercised concurrently by the union and the state governments are listed in List 3, the concurrent list, which includes 47 subjects. The union owns the residual powers, that is, abilities that are not stated or included in the 3 list. This split, however, is subject to 3 conditions. If on a concurrent list subject, the union and the state's laws conflict, the union law will prevail. If the Council of States or Rajya Sabha, by majority of 2/3 of its members, decide by resolution that a certain subject belonging to the state list is of national importance, the Parliament will be able to legislate on it. When a proclamation of emergency is in operation, the Parliament may legislate on any of the state subject. The force of such law will lapse 6 months after the proclamation ceases to operate. All matters connected to defense, security, and internal affairs, as well as communication, currency, banking, and insurance, interstate rivers and river valleys, interstate trade and commerce, and key industries in general. The Union has jurisdiction over the development and regulation of oil fields and mines that Parliament has determined necessary to be managed by it, as well as censuses, universities, and other institutions that Parliament has determined to be of national significance. Now, we will move to the important part of this chapter, legislative procedure, so I want everyone to pay attention to this part. The legislative procedure is divided into 6 parts: quorum, first stage, second stage, third stage, assent of the President, money bills. We will go through each of the 6 parts in depth. Quorum. According to Article 103 of the Constitution, a quorum for a session of the Houses of Parliament is 1/10 of the total number of members of the House. A quorum is essential for any process to take place in either house. The legislature's fundamental role is to make laws. Because modern society is so complicated, legislating becomes a difficult task. The Indian Constitution specifies the steps of legislative procedure as follows. First stage, the presentation of a bill that encapsulates the proposed law and is accompanied by a statement of objects and reasons is the first step of legislation. The bill's introduction is also known as the bill's first reading. Ordinary bills and money bills are the 2 categories of bills. A bill that is not a money or financial law may be introduced in either House of Parliament and must pass both houses before being delivered to the President for his signature. A bill can be introduced by a minister or a private member of Parliament. Every measure proposed in the House of Representatives must be published in the Gazette. Normally, there is no debate when a law is first introduced. The member who introduces the bill may give a brief remark outlining the bill's general goals and objectives. If the law is being debated at this point, one of the opponents may be allowed to explain his arguments. The question is then submitted to a vote. If the House approves the bill's introduction, it moves on to the next step. Second stage. The second stage has begun. There are 4 different courses to choose from. Following its introduction, a bill may be considered, may be referred to a House Select Committee, may be referred to both Houses Joint Committee, may be distributed for the aim of polling the public. In the event of regular legislation, the first 3 alternatives are usually chosen. Only when the proposed legislation is likely to cause public dissent and agitation is the last alternative used. One of these moves is carried out on that day. The bill's concepts and broad sections may be addressed. If the bill is taken into consideration, it will be amended, changed, and the terms of the bill will be examined section by clause. If a member is sent to the House Select Committee, it is examined and the report is presented to the House. The bill's provisions are then up for discussion, and modifications are permitted. This is the step that takes the most time. The bill's second reading will terminate after the clause-by-clause discussion is completed and every clause has been voted on. Third stage. The member in charge motions that the bill be passed at the third stage. The bill moves quickly through third reading since only verbal or strictly procedural modifications are usually proposed and debate is kept to a minimum. After all of the modifications have been resolved, The bill is eventually passed in the House of Representatives when it was first proposed. After then, it is forwarded to the other house for consideration. When the bill is brought up for consideration in the other house, it must go through the same steps as it did in the first. The house has three options. It might eventually pass the bill as it was sent by the original house. It may reject the bill outright or change it and send it back to the house of origin. It may take no action on the measure, and if more than 6 months have passed after the bill was received, it is considered rejected. The return bill is currently being considered by the originating house in respect of the modification. It sends a notice to the other house if it adopts these modifications. If both houses are unable to reach an agreement, the President will call a joint session of the two houses. By simple majority vote of those present and voting, the contested provision is eventually accepted or rejected. Assent of the President. A law that has been enacted by both houses is forwarded to the President with the Speaker's signature for his consent, Article 111. This is usually the final step. The measure becomes an act and is entered into the statute book if the President signs it. The law will come to an end if the President refuses to sign it. The President may also return the bill to the Houses for reconsideration with a statement urging that they do so. If the House pass the law again with or without revisions and the law is given to the President for his assent for the second time, the President has no authority to refuse to sign it. As a result, lawmaking is a laborious, complicated and time-consuming process. Passing a bill in a short period of time becomes difficult. The work is made easier by proper bill design and smart solicitation of opposition support. Money bills. It is any bill that deals with revenue and spending and is designated as a money bill by the Speaker. In the Rajya Sabha, a money bill cannot be tabled. When the Lok Sabha passes a money bill, it is sent to the Rajya Sabha for consideration. The Rajya Sabha cannot reject a money bill, but it must do so within 14 days after receiving the bill. Return the bill to the Lok Sabha, which will then have the option of accepting or rejecting all or any of the suggestions. If any of the proposals are accepted by the Lok Sabha, both houses are thought to have passed the money bill. Even if none of the proposals are accepted by the Lok Sabha, both houses are presumed to have passed the money bill without modifications. If a money bill enacted by the Lok Sabha and sent to the Rajya Sabha for its recommendations is not returned to it within 14 days, it is presumed to have been enacted in its original form by both houses at the end of the time. Now children, we will be learning about the parliamentary device to control the executive. One of the important functions of the parliament is to control the executive. Following mechanisms are available to it for this purpose. Question hour. Every session of either house begins with question hour, during which members of the public can ask and answer questions. All members of parliament, regardless of their political affiliations, have the right to ask questions. The true purpose of the member's question is to draw attention to the administration weaknesses, to learn how the government thinks about policy formulation and where policy already exists to make appropriate changes to it. 0 hour. The 0 hour, which occurs immediately after question hour, has become well known. This hour is known as 0 hour since it begins about 12 pm. In a legislative system, the phrase 0 hour is not technically acknowledged. During 0 hour, issues of immediate relevance are highlighted about which written inquiries could not be asked with sufficient advance warning. Calling attention motion. This is moved to bring a minister's attention to any topic of immediate public interest, and the minister may make a quick remark or seek for more time to make a statement later. A calling attention notification can only be used to address issues that are of primary interest to the union government. Short duration discussion. A member may bring forth a significant matter for debate under Rule 193. The minister in charge offers a quick response at the end of the session. Adjournment motion. If the adjournment motion is approved, the House's regular business will be suspended in order to consider the motion subject. An adjournment motion's objective is to hold the government accountable for a recent act of omission or conduct that has had major effects. Its acceptance is seen as a kind of government disapproval. Motion of confidence or no confidence. To demonstrate majority, the government moves a motion of confidence. Opposition parties, on the other hand, may file a motion of no confidence in the administration to form the administration to resign on the House floor. These motions are usually introduced to explore key policy concerns. Besides these devices, Parliament exercises control over the executive through various House committees. We will finish our chapter with the last topic, parliamentary committees, the executive's accountability to Parliament as well as Parliament's power to supervise and analyze how the executive acts are critical. However, some inevitable variables such as the strain on Parliament and its operating process make complete investigation of the numerous and complicated elements of day-to-day administration and financial transactions impossible for Parliament as a body. The problem was handled by the establishment of many committees with the required authorities to evaluate the work of the various government ministries. So, children, we are done with the chapter. I hope I have made this lesson as easy as possible for you all to understand. Now try to answer these personal questions on your own. Your time's up. Now pay attention as I'm going to read the answers out. It was a great experience and I hope you guys feel the same. With that said, today's class comes to end. We will meet in the next one. Thank you.